last episode, we examined Agent 16, a system designed to maintain conversational relationships over time. But creating a chat persona requires a completely different architecture than generating governed, publishable digital artifacts across an enterprise. This diagram shows where we are in the architectural framework. Agent 17, the content creation agent, sits here in the conversation and content tier. When building marketing systems, junior engineers often fall victim to the scaling fallacy. They assume that if a single, well-crafted prompt can write a good blog post, it can also reliably orchestrate a 50-piece multi-channel campaign. As the scale expands to dozens of emails, blogs, and social posts, a monolithic language model cracks under the load. Forced to juggle formatting rules, factual grounding, and creative prose simultaneously, it inevitably drops constraints, hallucinating data or ignoring brand restrictions. In a regulated industry or a luxury market, a single incorrect output is a critical failure. If a luxury brand's AI generates an ad using the word cheap, that is a contract-level compliance breach. The engineering goal at this level is no longer about writing fluent prose. The models already know how to write. The objective is strict, reliable governance. To achieve that governance, we abandon the single model approach and implement a decoupled newsroom. We break the generation process into specialized, non-overlapping roles. A researcher digs up the facts, a writer focuses entirely on the narrative, and an editor functions purely as a critic. The system enforces a strict non-publication rule. No single agent in this pipeline has the authority to ship an asset without validation from the others. By wiring these roles into a feedback loop, the architecture transitions from a static publish-and-forget script into an active publish-and-learn system. Multi-agent friction, specifically internal agents rejecting each other's work, is the necessary mechanism for producing high-fidelity automated content at scale. To see how this friction is enforced, we need to examine how the system handles brand rules. Brand voice cannot be treated as a vague suggestion in a prompt. It must be modeled as a constraint-satisfaction problem. The rules act as hard architectural boundaries. If a draft violates a brand rule, the entire generation is treated exactly like a failed database commit. The transaction rolls back. Relying on the probabilistic output of a language model is a liability in strict environments. By applying a deterministic logic gate on top of the generation, we remove the risk of bad statistical guesses. Wrapping creative output in strict mathematical constraints guarantees absolute brand fidelity. This schematic maps the complete 6-stage architecture of the content creation agent. It begins with strategic intent and the planner. In Phase 1, the human operator seeds the system with high-level parameters, defining the launch date, the target audience persona, and the core value proposition. Phase 2 moves into the planner. Using the sense, model, plan, act cycle, the agent decomposes that single goal into a multi-channel content calendar. In Phase 3, the researcher agent takes over. Before drafting, it queries external databases or runs RAG pipelines to gather verifiable empirical data. Phase 4 hands data to the MITRE agent. Relieved of factual burdens, the writer focuses on narrative flow, translating research into prose and dispatching requests for visual assets. Because it is optimized for engagement, it takes creative liberties. It is not built for compliance. We now have a high-speed creative engine, but pushing this draft directly to a live audience lacks the critical gatekeeper required for enterprise safety. Phase 5 introduces the editor. The editor does not create content. It acts exclusively as a critic, evaluating the writer's draft against the brand style guide to calculate a hard consistency score. If the editor detects a banned term or a structural failure, it generates a precise revision instruction and forces the writer to retry. The draft is trapped in this loop until the constraint is fully satisfied. Phase 6 occurs after publication. The system captures click-through rates and engagement signals. These metrics serve as a reward signal, feeding directly back into the planner. When a format outperforms the baseline, the agent adjusts its internal policy for the next run. The internal revision cycle ensures immediate safety, while the external performance loop drives long-term optimization. Together, they form a self-improving production engine. Let's look at how this logic is expressed in the underlying Python architecture. This code snippet shows an abstract base class that forces every agent in the pipeline to execute a strict cognitive loop: sense, model, plan, and act. The enforcement of the brand constraints is surprisingly straightforward at the code level. A data class stores a hard array of forbidden words. The editor's validation function scans the draft, and if any of those specific terms are found, it triggers a failure flag and initiates the retry process. We achieve reliable AI behavior by wrapping the unpredictable probabilistic generation of a language model inside standard deterministic logic gates. In practice, this architecture scales effortlessly across formats. It excels at high-volume campaigns, coordinating compliant text and visual assets simultaneously. It is the ideal structure for strict luxury marketing or highly regulated corporate environments. However, the system has a blind spot. If the retrieval grounding in FaceBree is flawed, the editor will still pass the document, resulting in a perfectly formatted, confidently wrong output. Garbage facts in, polished garbage out. When deployed correctly, Agent 17 replaces manual brand review with an automated, self-optimizing governance pipeline. You can study the full Python implementation for this agentic chain, including the consistency scoring functions, in Chapter 10 of 30 Agents Every AI Engineer Must Build by Imran Ahmad. In our next episode, we take this exact analytics loop and redirect it from content creation to individual user personalization as we build Agent 18, the recommendation agent.